Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fluent Mindcast. I'm Emma, and I am so excited for the deep dive we have prepared for you today.
And I'm Jake. If you're a developer, an engineer, a solution architect, maybe a designer,
Basically, anyone who works in tech.
right, anyone in the global tech market who really needs to nail that next English language interview, well, this deep dive is specifically for you.
We've taken all of your questions, all the source material you've sent us about interview English for developers and tech jobs, and we're going to turn it all into, practical, usable communication patterns.
Yeah, this is all about building that confidence.
It is. And before we really jump in, if you find value in these deep dives, please just take a quick moment to hit that like button.
And subscribe to Fluent Mindcast. It genuinely helps us reach more learners all over the world. And, well, we're just incredibly grateful for your support.
We really are. Okay, so let's set the stage. You mentioned this is crucial, and I think it's worth repeating. You do not need to sound like a native English speaker to get a top tech job.
Absolutely not.
Seriously. That idea, that one single idea, is often the first thing that creates all this unnecessary stress.
Exactly. Let's just break that myth right now. Technical interviews they're fundamentally different. The recruiters, the hiring managers, they're listening for clarity, confidence, and your ability to explain, really complex technical processes in a simple way.
And our mission today is to build those three things, step by step, slowly and clearly.
That's the plan.
So wherever you are right now, we really encourage you, just take a deep, slow breath with us. By the end of this conversation, we want you to feel dramatically more prepared, more confident in the language you use when you talk about your amazing technical skill.
You've got this.
Okay, so we're starting with mindset.
Yes.
Because in our experience, the internal attitude you bring to the interview, your communication confidence, it's at least 50% of the battle.
At least, yeah.
We know that so many developers, you read, you write, you communicate technical English perfectly well every day.
Yeah.
But the moment that spotlight hits,
You freeze.
you just freeze.
It is such a relatable experience. I mean, it's the context shift that's the real killer. Developers deal with English documentation, commit messages, error logs. That's just, routine.
Normal.
But the instant a human being who, let's be honest, controls your future salary,
Yeah.
looks at you and says, very calmly,
Whispering, so tell me about yourself.
yeah, what have you been working on recently? That's the moment your brain hits what I call the null pointer exception.
Oh, that's perfect.
All systems just halt. You forget basic grammar, panic sets in, and that internal error state is what we have to debug first.
That analogy is so spot on. And that stress reaction is exactly what causes people to speak too fast, to worry about all the small grammar rules, and ultimately it just obscures the brilliant technical concepts they're trying to share.
Yep.
So we have three core mindset shifts that kind of act like patches for that freeze moment.
Okay, let's hear them.
So shift number one, the interview is about collaboration, not grading.
This is a fundamental change in perspective.
Yeah.
It's huge. If you walk into that interview thinking, this person is here to find every mistake I make.
Which is what a lot of us do.
It is. You put yourself into a rigid exam structure. You'll be afraid to pause, afraid to ask for clarification. You'll be afraid to admit you don't know something.
And a good company, especially a company that's focused on innovation and teamwork, is absolutely not trying to trick you. They're trying to figure out, can this person effectively collaborate with me? They're asking, are you compatible technically? Can you communicate clearly, under a little bit of pressure? Are you someone we want to solve problems with for the next 5 years?
And when you reframe it as a collaboration, like you're solving a puzzle together or just discussing some interesting technical challenges, the pressure drops instantly.
It does.
You become an equal, even if you are the one applying for the job. And remember, you are also interviewing them.
That's so important to remember.
You're assessing their team culture, their technical debt. This shift in the power dynamic is incredibly helpful for your confidence.
So if you need to, just tell yourself that mantra right before the interview. This is a conversation between future teammates. It changes everything.
It really does. Okay, what's shift number two?
Shift number two is prioritize clarity over grammar.
This one is so difficult for B2 learners to fully accept, but it is so critical. I see it all the time. Non-native speakers, they often fixate on finding the perfect verb tense or making sure the preposition is exactly correct.
Yeah, they're debugging their own speech in real time.
Exactly. And they pause internally to do it. But the interviewer, in a technical setting. They're filtering for technical signal. They're listening for keywords, concepts, design patterns, and results.
Right.
For example, if you say, we deployed the microservices yesterday on cloud, maybe you missed the article V or the preposition in the cloud, but they heard deployed, microservices, cloud. They got 99% of the technical signal.
That is such a great example. Your technical signal strength is what matters most. Now, we're not saying grammar doesn't matter at all.
Of course not.
But if your idea about, say, clean architecture or your explanation of a specific API integration is clear and concise and uses the right technical terms, minor grammatical errors are universally forgiven in the tech industry.
They are hiring an engineer.
Not a language professor.
Exactly. Think about the common mistakes that are totally acceptable. Missing the ickies on third-person singular verbs, or maybe occasional misuse of articles like a or the. These are just, understandable transfer errors from other languages. They do not cause technical confusion. So focus your energy on accurately describing the challenge and the solution, not on grammatical perfection.
And finally, the most practical tool for combating that freeze, pauses, are confidence.
Oh, this is a big one. I see people rush because they mistake speed for fluency. They think if I speak fast, I sound like a native speaker.
But the opposite is true, isn't it? Rushing just makes you stumble, you lose your structure, you sound
frantic. Yeah. Slowing down is a sign of control. It's a sign of respect for your own thoughts. When you slow down, you give your brain those precious milliseconds to translate or to structure the idea or find the correct technical term.
So let's talk about where a strategic pause is most effective.
Okay. First, a pause is critical right before you deliver a key piece of information or a metric. So if you say, I improved performance from 900 milliseconds to 120 milliseconds, you should put a deliberate pause right before the numbers.
A deliberate pause gives the number impact.
It makes it land. Second, use a pause when you're transitioning between the elements of a structured answer, like the STAR method we're going to discuss soon. Pausing after the situation lets the interviewer mentally process that context before you hit them with the action.
Let's actually practice the specific pacing right now. So if you're listening, try to repeat this sentence and notice the rhythm. Incorporate a small, intentional silence where I pause, slowly, deliberately. When I take a short pause before explaining a difficult problem, I sound thoughtful and completely in command of the material.
That brief silence is not a void. It's structure. You have to embrace it. It shows the interviewer that you're not reciting some memorized script. You are processing and delivering a thoughtful, well-organized response. That shows engineering maturity.
Excellent. So we've managed the mindset. Let's apply that structure and that confidence to the very first question you're probably going to face in any technical screening.
Knowingly. Tell me about yourself.
The classic.
It is. And this question is deceptively simple. It's so open-ended, and a lot of engineers, they really struggle to summarize 5 or 10 years of complex work into a succinct professional statement.
Yeah, they often start rambling, right, about their first job or their university degree.
Exactly. We need a clear professional template for this.
We call this the 3-part developer template. And this ensures you hit all the necessary signals, your experience, your current relevance, and your future direction in under 60 seconds.
Okay, the 3 essential parts are, number 1, background. This establishes your foundation. How many years of experience? What's your primary tech stack? Python, Django, TypeScript, React, Java, Spring, whatever it is. Number 2, current focus. What are you doing right now? What challenge are you currently solving? Maybe it's optimizing database access or migrating services or mentoring junior developers. This shows you have immediate relevance.
Right.
And number 3, tech highlights or motivation. What do you excel at or what excites you professionally? This part shows your initiative and your cultural fit. You could be a clean code advocate or passionate about security, or you thrive in agile teams.
Okay, before we model an advanced answer with this, let's quickly define some of that essential vocabulary that can really elevate a developer's response.
Good idea.
So for B2 learners, using these terms correctly demonstrates a really high level of competence. First, clean architecture.
Yeah, this doesn't just mean your code is tidy. It means you're designing software in an organized, structured way that separates concerns. It makes the system easier to test, to maintain, and to change in the future. It really shows strategic thinking.
Okay, next up, microservices.
So this is a system where a single large application, which we often call a monolith, is broken down into lots of independent, smaller services that all communicate with each other. This is crucial for scalability and for team independence.
And finally, CI/CD pipelines.
Right. So CI stands for continuous integration, that's merging code frequently, and CD stands for continuous delivery or automated deployment. Basically, it just means you automate the testing and release of code efficiently and safely.
Perfect. Using those terms shows you're current with modern development practices.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now that we've defined that vocabulary, let's model two answers. I'll take the basic clear answer first, and I'll say it very slowly. This is perfect for B2 learners to repeat and internalize. Slowly, pausing slightly between sections. I am a mid-level software engineer with 4 years of hands-on experience, primarily focused on JavaScript and the React framework. Currently, I am working on redesigning our customer dashboard, improving front-end load times, and ensuring accessibility standards are met. I particularly enjoy solving complex state management challenges and working closely with UX designers in an iterative, agile environment.
That is fantastic. It's professional, it's concise, it hits all three signals. Now let's use some of that advanced vocabulary we just defined. I'll deliver a slightly richer answer, maybe for a senior level role, but I'll maintain that slow, structured pace.
Okay.
Slowly, using technical terms. I specialize in high-performance back-end development with a foundational focus on Java, Kotlin, and clean architecture. In my current role, I'm leading the migration of our legacy platform into independent microservices, using event streaming via Kafka, and deploying everything through robust CI/CD pipelines. My true motivation lies in designing stable, highly available systems that are easy for the team to scale and maintain over the long term.
The difference in the signal there is huge, isn't it? The first answer says, I am a competent developer.
Yeah.
But the second one says, I am a strategic engineer who understands system longevity.
Exactly.
So for you listening, you should personalize both of those templates right now. Just pause this deep dive and quickly sketch out your own 3 points. Don't worry about perfect English, just get the structure down. That structure is your safety net.
All right, so once you pass that introductory question, the interview moves into specific experience. The interviewer will start asking for anecdotes like, tell me about a time when you solved a difficult problem, or describe the last major bug you fixed.
And as we mentioned earlier, the common mistake here is giving answers that are way too brief.
Way too brief.
For example, the interviewer asks, how did you improve performance? And the developer just says, I optimized the database.
I hear that all the time. And it's a start, but it leaves the interviewer with, like, a dozen unanswered questions.
It's a tragedy, really, because the engineer probably did this complex, impactful work, but they failed to communicate the context and the impact.
Right, so to fix this, we introduced the universally recognized framework for structured storytelling, STAR.
STAR stands for 4 steps, and it forces you to provide the complete narrative. It actually mimics the structure of a really good engineering retrospective report.
So the S stands for situation, you're setting the scene. What was the context?
The T stands for task your specific responsibility or goal.
A is for action, the specific steps you took to solve the problem.
And R is for result, the measurable outcome and what you learned from it.
Okay, let's go back to our brief answer. I optimized the database. Now, I'll tell that same story using STAR, and I'll make sure to add pauses to mark the transitions for you.
Let's hear it.
Slowly and professionally, S. The situation was critical. We noticed that our critical payment gateway service was experiencing unacceptable latency, specifically during peak usage times, and it was causing severe checkout abandonment. Our monitoring showed average response times spiking well over 1 second.
Okay, so that's the problem.
Right. T. My specific task was to lead the investigation into the performance bottleneck. We suspected a persistent database query issue, and I was responsible for diagnosing the root cause and implementing a fix to lower that latency below 200 milliseconds.
Your specific goal.
Yep. A. The action I took involved first utilizing a database profiling tool to locate the slowest queries. I discovered a complex join that lacked proper indexing and was executing in an inefficient loop. So I refactored the SQL query to simplify the join path, and I added a composite index tailored specifically to the where clause conditions.
So those are your concrete steps.
Exactly. The result was immediate and measurable. We saw response times drop dramatically, which stabilized the service load average. We reduced the 99th percentile latency from 1,200 milliseconds down to 150 milliseconds. And that improvement meant we completely eliminated the checkout abandonment issue that was linked to slow payments.
Wow. That is so powerful. And for everyone listening, just notice the huge difference. If you just said, I fixed the query, the company doesn't know your value.
Not at all.
But using STAR, you just showed initiative, diagnostic skills, technical depth. You mentioned profiling tools, composite indexing, and a measurable impact on the business, which was eliminating checkout abandonment. But let's address a challenge here. What if you don't have exact numbers? Do you always need a specific metric?
That's a brilliant question. And no, not all work translates into a hard number. If you don't have exact metrics, you just have to provide qualitative results or clear outcomes.
Okay, like what?
Well, instead of saying latency improved by 800 meters, you could say, the result was that system stability drastically improved, and we reduced the number of critical P1 support tickets by half in the following month.
So it's still a result, just not a time-based metric.
Exactly. The key is that the result must show a clear, beneficial consequence, whether it's measurable, like latency reduction, or a process improvement, like fewer support tickets or faster team deployment time.
So another quick pause for you, the listener. Think of a complex bug fix or maybe a system migration you managed. Write down those 4 star points for it: situation, task, action, and result. Just structure it, practice it, and you will transform your technical anecdotes into proof of your value.
Okay, we've covered structure. Now let's focus on the actual language, the 5 essential communication phrases that will make you sound professional, clear, and confident in English, especially in these high-stakes situations.
Yes, these phrases are like your verbal tools. We're going to say them slowly, and we really want you to repeat them out loud after us.
And we're not just going to repeat them. We'll discuss the professional subtext of each one, why it works.
Okay. Phrase number 1, describing responsibility.
So when you're asked about your role, don't use weak verbs like I did or I worked on. Use this stronger phrase instead, slowly, with emphasis. In my previous role, I was responsible for.
Slowly repeating. In my previous role, I was responsible for.
Right.
Okay, let's analyze the subtext. Using responsible for immediately establishes you as an owner, not just a participant.
Right. It communicates accountability, seniority. You can follow this with things like ensuring system uptime or managing the entire deployment environment.
It's powerful. Okay, phrase number 2. Describing challenges. This is your smooth entry into any STAR story. It frames the difficulty professionally, slowly, intentionally. One challenge I faced was...
Slowly repeating. One challenge I faced was... The subtext here is that this phrase manages expectations. You're signaling to the interviewer that what's coming next is a story of overcoming difficulty, not just, routine work. You could follow it with integrating a legacy API that lacked documentation. Yeah. Or meeting the strict security standards of a new client.
Okay, phrase number 3. Teamwork and collaboration.
Yes. Modern engineering is never a solo sport. Interviewers value collaboration skills very highly. So you need to show, not just tell, that you work well with others. Slowly, clearly. I collaborated closely with.
Slowly repeating. I collaborated closely with. I think the subtext here, the key word is closely.
It is?
It implies active, frequent partnership. You can use it to mention specific teams like, I collaborated closely with the DevOps team to implement infrastructure as code, or with the product owner to prioritize feature delivery. It shows that cross-functional awareness.
Perfect. Phrase number 4, demonstrating impact. So after you describe the action you took, you have to frame the result as an impact on the company or the users.
Slowly, with purpose. The main impact of my work was...
Slowly repeating. The main impact of my work was... The subtext here is that this phrase shifts the focus from your effort to the benefit you delivered. It's the moment you speak the language of the business.
Right. You could finish it with significantly accelerating time to market for our mobile app, or improving the stability of the core service during high-traffic events.
And the final phrase, number 5, showing a growth mindset. Tech changes daily. If you're not learning, you are falling behind. This phrase shows you are proactively investing in your future. Slowly, confidently. I'm currently improving my skills in.
Slowly repeating, I'm currently improving my skills in. The subtext here is all about humility and ambition. You're showing them your next step.
Yeah, and make sure this skill is relevant to the job you're applying for. For example, I'm currently improving my skills in cloud security principles and working towards an AWS certification. You need to have that answer ready.
All right, now we transition into the behavioral zone. As we said, these questions, they assess your soft skills, communication under pressure, and how you handle organizational conflict. It's not just about your coding skills.
Not at all. And they absolutely require the structure of STAR. The company is trying to predict your future behavior based on your past actions. That's why these questions are so often formatted as, tell me about a time when.
Right.
So we need to analyze the real motivation behind the question. Let's look at the first common behavioral question, which is all about checking for adaptability. Tell me about a time you had to learn something quickly.
The interviewer here is looking for your process for acquiring new knowledge. How do you handle uncertainty? They want to see initiative, not panic. So let's use an AWS migration example, delivered slowly, focusing on that structured STAR approach.
Yeah.
Slowly, detailed example. The situation was urgent. We won a new client who required us to deploy a highly secure component of our system on AWS, specifically using services like Lambda and SQS. And honestly, I had zero production experience with serverless architecture at that time. The task was to get comfortable enough with this new stack within 3 weeks to actively contribute to the design and deployment. So this required intense focus. The action I took involved a combination of resources. First, I spent my lunch breaks and a couple of evenings per week going through specialized, short online courses on Lambda functions and event-driven architecture. But crucially, I also set up daily 15-minute coffee meetings with our senior cloud engineer to ask specific questions about our implementation context. And the result was that not only did we meet the deadline, but because of that deep dive, I discovered a crucial optimization for cost reduction using reserved concurrency for our Lambda functions. I transformed from having zero experience to becoming the team's informal contact for serverless best practices, which really showed me the value of structured, intensive learning.
That answer is so effective. You didn't just say, I learned it fast. You detailed the process, which specific resources you used, like online courses and mentorship from a senior engineer.
Right.
And then you link the result back to technical excellence and business value cost optimization. That's a perfect answer.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's tackle the question that causes the most anxiety. Handling mistakes.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. The question is, tell me about a mistake you made and what you learned.
With this one, the interviewer is testing for humility, accountability, and most importantly, your ability to implement process change. They don't want to hear that you're perfect.
No, they want to know that you are a resilient engineer who improves systems because of your mistakes.
Exactly.
Okay, let's use a real-world configuration example, and we'll frame the lesson learned as a new permanent process. I'll deliver this one slowly, emphasizing accountability. The situation occurred about a year ago during a routine, high-volume deployment. I was deploying a change to our caching services configuration files, which required updating the connection string for a new database replica. The mistake I made was failing to fully execute the automated testing suite on the staging environment before deploying to production. I confess, I was rushing that day, and I assumed the change was just too minor to cause a problem. The immediate consequence was a brief but complete service outage lasting about 5 minutes, affecting hundreds of users. I immediately initiated the rollback and diagnosed the connection string error. The profound lesson learned was that every single change, no matter how small, requires the full documented process. I actually took the lead in implementing 2 crucial process changes. First, every config change is now subject to automated read-only dry run testing that simulates the connection before deployment. And second, maybe more importantly, every single configuration change must now be peer-reviewed by at least one other teammate using a strict checklist. By adding that structured redundancy, that specific type of human error in deployment has been entirely eliminated from our team's workflow.
Wow. That is the perfect response. You showed that the mistake wasn't just a dead end. It was the start of a process improvement.
Exactly.
You turned a negative event into a positive outcome for the whole team. That shows engineering maturity, it shows leadership, and that is what they are listening for.
Okay, let's move back into technical weeds. Let's focus on those complex, deep questions, the ones that test your architectural knowledge. You need a structure that demonstrates both your practical experience and your theoretical understanding.
We recommend a 4-part flow for these in-depth technical answers. And this structure takes your answer from a simple definition to a business-focused analysis. So number 1 is experience.
How often do you work with it?
2 is tools.
What specific technologies do you use?
3 is example.
Provide a brief, real-world project scenario.
And 4 is value and trade-off.
Right. What benefit did using this technology provide, and what challenges did you have to overcome?
Okay, let's apply this structure to the question you mentioned earlier. What is your experience with microservices, and what have you learned about scaling them?
Okay, you take this one.
All right, I'll answer this slowly. Integrating that structure and paying attention to specific vocabulary. Slowly applying structure. 1, experience. I've been actively involved in designing and maintaining distributed systems and microservices architecture for over 3 years now, transitioning from a previous monolithic environment. 2. Tools. For the core business logic, we primarily use Golang, and we manage state with PostgreSQL. We rely heavily on containerization using Docker, orchestration through Kubernetes for scaling and deployment, and we utilize RabbitMQ for efficient asynchronous message handling between services. 3. Example. My most recent major project involved breaking apart our large centralized billing platform into about a half a dozen distinct independent microservices, things like a dedicated payment capture service, an invoice generation service, and a reporting API. 4. Value and trade-offs. The main value we achieved was truly independent deployment. Our teams could ship features for their specific service without waiting on others, which drastically increased development speed. However, the key challenge we overcame was the complexity managing the communication overhead and ensuring distributed tracing was correctly implemented. We solved this by strictly standardizing our API contracts and implementing Jaeger for comprehensive monitoring.
That is a masterclass in a technical answer. Seriously. You not only define the topic and name the tools, Golang, Kubernetes, Jaeger, but you also address the trade-offs. A senior engineer knows that microservices introduce new complexity, like communication overhead and tracing. Only mentioning the benefits makes you sound junior. But by discussing the challenge and how you solved it, standardizing contracts, implementing Jaeger, you show true practical mastery.
And that's the goal. Okay, this is perhaps the most critical section for confidence management. What happens when, inevitably, the interviewer asks a deeply specific technical question, maybe about a technology you haven't touched, and you genuinely do not know the answer?
That moment can trigger the freeze panic instantly. You might feel a cultural pressure to pretend you know everything, but in the tech industry, that lack of honesty is a much bigger red flag than the knowledge gap itself.
True confidence in engineering is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing how to solve a problem or learn a concept efficiently. So the goal is to move the conversation away from the knowledge gap and back towards your strong problem-solving skills.
So don't fall silent. And please, do not just say, I don't know. You have to bridge that gap professionally. Here is the perfect, mature, and strategically sound phrase. I'm going to say it very slowly.
Okay.
Slowly, confidently. I'm not completely sure about the precise implementation details of that right now, but here's exactly how I would approach investigating it.
That single sentence is a game changer. Let's break down what it communicates. First, it shows honesty, humility, and immediate strategic thinking. You are telling them, I may not have this specific data point memorized, but I have a reliable process for getting the answer.
Right. For example, if they ask about some niche configuration detail for NoSQL database you barely use, you can respond, I'm not completely sure of the precise configuration details as I haven't used that specific feature in a production environment. However, my immediate approach would be to first consult the official vendor documentation for best practices, and simultaneously, I'd set up a small sandbox environment to test the configuration change with simulated load.
You just transformed a potential failure point into a demonstration of structured learning and diagnostic capability, and that is exactly what an engineering manager wants to hear, a candidate who's focused on solving problems, not just reciting facts.
For sure.
Okay, we've reached the end of the main interview discussion. The floor is now yours. And asking insightful questions is non-negotiable.
It really is.
It demonstrates confidence, professionalism, and it shows that you are seriously evaluating whether this company is the right fit for your career. Never, ever say, no, I don't have any questions. That just signals a lack of interest. You need 3 high-value questions that show you think strategically, not just tactically. I'll read them slowly.
Okay, question 1.
Question 1. What are the biggest technical challenges the team is facing right now? And what are the known technical debts we would need to address?
Okay, analysis. This question is fantastic because it shows you're ready to dive into the real work. You're asking about the pain points, and if they say, oh, we have no challenges, that's often a red flag that they aren't being honest, or maybe they're not self-aware. If they describe a complex scaling issue, well, you know exactly what your job would be.
Okay, here's the second one, slowly. Question 2. How does your team approach code reviews, and what does the culture of constructive feedback look like?
I love this question. This assesses team health. Code reviews are the heart of collaboration and quality control.
Absolutely.
We're asking, is the feedback kind and helpful, or is it harsh and critical? This tells you whether the team prioritizes quality and psychological safety. Okay, and the last one, slowly. Question 3. What does success look like for the person in this role during the first 6 months, specifically regarding a measurable deliverable?
This question is crucial for aligning expectations. It forces the interviewer to define a benchmark. If they say, success is deploying our new observability dashboard within the first 4 months,
Yeah.
you immediately have a clear, actionable goal. It shows you prioritize tangible results.
Yeah. And by asking these kinds of questions, you transition from being a passive candidate to an engaged professional consultant who is assessing a potential partner.
Okay, we've made it to the final moments. Your closing impression has to be clear, positive, and confident. Don't let your voice rush here. Maintain that slow, confident pacing all the way to the end.
A strong closing just reinforces your professionalism and your genuine interest.
Use this simple, structured closing statement. I'll say it slowly for practice. Slowly, with a warm tone. Thank you so much for your time today. I truly enjoyed learning more about the role, the technical challenges, and the team culture.
And that's all you need. It's polite, it expresses gratitude, and it confirms your engagement. And speaking of tone,
Yeah.
here is the simplest nonverbal hack that transcends language. Smile when you speak.
That's absolutely right. You can hear a smile, even if you're just on the phone or if the video quality is poor. The warmth and the energy you transmit when you're smiling just makes you sound more positive, more engaged, and more approachable.
Because small action with a huge communicative impact.
It really is. All right, that brings us to the end of this truly deep dive here on Fluent Mindcast. We covered the essential mindset shifts. Remember, collaboration over grading.
And pauses our confidence.
We mastered the 3-part Tell Me About Yourself template. We learned how to use STAR for measurable technical storytelling.
And we practiced those 5 critical professional phrases. We sincerely hope that by breaking down these structures and analyzing the underlying motivations of the questions, we have significantly reduced your stress factor for that next tech interview.
Remember, the goal is always clarity, structure, and demonstrating the measurable impact that you deliver.
And if you found this deep dive useful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment below. Tell us what specific topics you want us to cover next time.
Yeah, maybe advanced system design interviews or how to negotiate salary in English. Your feedback is what guides us in building the content you need.
Thank you so much for spending this time learning and practicing with us today.
We want to leave you with this final, powerful reassurance. Your English skills are growing, and your technical skills are proven. You are capable of navigating these complex conversations with confidence and with structure. Go into that next interview knowing you have the skills.
And you are absolutely ready for the job you want in the international tech market.
See you next time.